Gather round, it's African Moonlight Story time.
Victor stood by the window, staring out at the quiet street. It had been 2 years since Sarah's death, and the pain had never fully faded. Their house, once filled with laughter, was now eerily silent. He had lost more than just a wife, he had lost his partner, his best friend. The memory of her vibrant smile haunted him daily. Despite his best efforts, he had never been able to move on. The thought of another woman felt like a betrayal, an unthinkable act that would dishonor her memory. But there was someone who had always been there for him, someone who had supported him through the darkest days, Lydia, Sarah's best friend. Lydia had been there from the moment Sarah passed, offering comfort and kindness without expecting anything in return. She had become a fixture in his life, visiting often, bringing meals, and just being a listening ear. Over time, he had started to see her differently. The way she laughed, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about her passions, the warmth in her voice when she called his name, it all began to stir something inside him. It was a feeling he couldn't ignore, but he fought it, convincing himself that it was nothing more than the grief clouding his judgment. Lydia was his late wife's best friend, after all. How could he even think of her in that way? But the pull was undeniable, and every time they spent time together, it grew stronger. One evening, Lydia came over to check on him. He had been avoiding her calls for a few days, but she had insisted on seeing him. When she entered the living room, her soft smile greeted him, but he noticed the concern in her eyes. She knew something was wrong, and she wasn't going to leave until they talked. "Victor, are you okay?" she asked gently, sitting next to him. Her scent, familiar and comforting, filled the air. It was hard for him to focus on anything else. "I'm fine, Lydia. Just thinking," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "You've been quiet lately. I know you're still hurting, but you don't have to carry it alone," Lydia said, her voice soft yet firm. "I'm here for you. You don't have to be strong all the time." Victor turned his gaze away from her, unable to look her in the eyes. "I don't know if I can keep doing this, Lydia. The memories, the pain, it's like a constant weight." Lydia's hand gently rested on his, and the warmth of her touch sent a shiver through him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence hung between them, thick with unspoken words. "You know I'll always be here for you," Lydia whispered. "But I need you to let me in. Let me help you heal." Victor's heart skipped a beat. Her words, her proximity, they were more than he could handle. The line between grief and something deeper began to blur, and he found himself questioning his own emotions. Was he ready to let go of the past? Was it time to open his heart again? And if so, could he really fall for Lydia? As the days went by, Victor found himself seeking out Lydia more and more. It wasn't just the comfort she offered, it was the way she made him feel alive again. She had an energy that was impossible to ignore, a kind of lightness that seemed to fill the emptiness Sarah had left behind. She made him laugh, made him feel seen, made him feel like he wasn't alone in the world. But there was a constant nagging feeling in the back of his mind. How could he move on from Sarah? How could he love someone else when his heart was still with her? Lydia was his friend, his confidant. He couldn't betray that. He couldn't betray Sarah. Yet, as they spent more time together, their bond deepened. Lydia began to share things with him, her fears, her dreams, her memories, and Victor found himself opening up in ways he hadn't thought possible. He saw a different side of her, a side that was vulnerable, kind, and passionate. She was no longer just Sarah's best friend. She was becoming someone he wanted in his life in a way he hadn't anticipated. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset, Victor's heart raced. Lydia was talking about her childhood, her love for painting, and how she always dreamed of traveling the world. Victor listened intently, mesmerized by her words. "You know," Lydia said, turning toward him, I never thought I'd be here, talking to you like this. But I'm glad I am. You've been through so much, Victor. You're stronger than you know." Victor's throat tightened. His emotions swirled inside him. It felt like the right moment, but also the wrong one. "Lydia, I..." He trailed off, unsure of how to express what he was feeling. Lydia looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of what he was trying to say. For a long moment, nothing was said. And yet, in the quiet, something shifted between them. Victor could no longer deny the truth. He was falling for Lydia, and the fear that had held him back for so long was beginning to crumble. But the question remained, was he ready to move forward? Could he open his heart to love again, especially with someone so close to Sarah? The uncertainty loomed over him, but deep down, he knew that whatever happened next, his life would never be the same. The days that followed were filled with tension. Victor couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between him and Lydia, but neither of them spoke about it. Their interactions were still warm, still full of the same comfort they had always shared, but there was an underlying current, a sense of unspoken words waiting to be revealed. One evening, as Victor was heading home after a long day at work, his mind kept drifting back to Lydia. He couldn't deny it any longer. He had feelings for her, feelings that went beyond friendship. He wanted to reach out to her, to ask her if she felt the same, but the fear of losing their connection, of complicating everything, kept him silent. When he entered his house, the familiar emptiness greeted him, and the weight of his loneliness seemed heavier than ever. He sat on the couch, his mind racing with conflicting emotions. He had never felt this torn before. Sarah had been his world, and letting go of her was something he had never imagined he would have to do. But Lydia was different. She wasn't just a friend, she was someone who had been there for him when he needed it most. She had stood by him through his darkest moments, and now, she was the light he found himself drawn to. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a message from Lydia. "Victor, can we talk? I'm coming over in a few minutes." His heart skipped a beat. He hadn't been expecting this, but the instant he read her message, he knew it was time. Time to face what had been building between them. Time to confront the feelings that had been growing silently, hidden beneath the surface. When Lydia arrived, she was as composed as ever, but Victor noticed the slight tremor in her hands as she set down her bag. It was then that he realized just how much she was struggling with this too. She wasn't just a friend, she was navigating the same emotions he was. "I've been thinking a lot," Lydia began, her voice hesitant. "About us. About everything. I know it's complicated. I don't want to do anything that would hurt you, or make things harder." Victor's heart tightened. He had been hoping for this conversation, yet he didn't know what to say. How could he explain how much he needed her in his life without betraying Sarah's memory? How could he open his heart without feeling guilty for doing so? "I've been thinking too," he replied, his voice strained. "Lydia, He stopped, unsure how to finish his sentence. Lydia sat beside him, her eyes meeting his. "Victor, you don't have to say anything. I just want you to know that whatever happens, I'm here. Always." Her words were gentle, but they carried a weight that Victor couldn't ignore. He knew she cared about him, and he couldn't deny the warmth that spread through him whenever she was near. But was this right? Was it fair to Sarah, to their past, to open his heart to someone else? Lydia reached for his hand, and for a moment, Victor was frozen. His heart pounded in his chest as their fingers touched. She had always been there, always been a comforting presence in his life. But this was different. "I don't know what the right thing is, Lydia," Victor said quietly. "I don't know if I can love again. Not like I loved Sarah." Lydia's expression softened, and she squeezed his hand. "I'm not asking you to forget Sarah, Victor. I could never ask you to do that. But what I'm saying is that maybe it's time for you to live for yourself. You've been through so much, and you deserve happiness too." Victor closed his eyes, the weight of her words settling deep within him. Was she right? Had he been holding on to the past so tightly that he had been closing himself off from the possibility of a future? "Lydia, I'm scared," Victor confessed, his voice breaking. "I'm scared of what this means, of what it could do to us." "I know," Lydia whispered. "I'm scared too. But we can figure this out together. No rush. No pressure. Just, let's take it one step at a time." Victor looked at her, the vulnerability in her eyes mirroring his own. It was as if they were both standing on the edge of something new, something unknown, but neither of them wanted to step back. There was no turning back now, and maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something beautiful. "I'm willing to try," Victor finally said, his voice filled with uncertainty but also hope. "But I need time. I need to figure out who I am, without Sarah, without this grief. I need to know if I can really open my heart again." Lydia smiled softly, her eyes filled with understanding. "I'm not going anywhere, Victor. Take all the time you need. I'm here, whenever you're ready." And for the first time in a long time, Victor felt a spark of hope. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time since Sarah's death, he was willing to face it. He was willing to take the first step into the unknown, knowing that Lydia was right there beside him. As they sat together in the quiet of the night, the weight that had once felt suffocating began to lift, replaced by the possibility of something new. It wouldn't be easy, but with Lydia by his side, maybe, just maybe, he could learn to love again.